When do you determine if you need a lawyer involved? Hi guys, my name is Deepak Shukla, founder at the Pearl Lemon Group. We're a business growth and development agency based in the UK, USA, as well as serving clients worldwide. And here today, in day number 87, we're here to talk about, when you should know if you need to get your lawyer involved. But before we get into it, feel free to click the link in the description below to get access to 7 additional strategies that are not shared in this training. And please do subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. So this is something that I do think is worth considering, because there may be times when, if you're in the performance marketing game, or if you're in for whatever reason, if you're unhappy with, so it goes two ways. First of all, right? Your client can be super unhappy with you and threaten lawyers, or you could be super unhappy with your client and feel that you need to get a lawyer involved. Okay, so that's really the two scenarios: that you need a lawyer or they need a lawyer, or you both need lawyers. And let's deal with it in two aspects. I'd always say that you would benefit from, ultimately, if you're in a space where there's potential for legal issues or legal action, it always benefits to have or build a relationship with a lawyer. Now, I would say that you don't need to preempt it. It's only really if it happens, meaning that if someone, and these are the key areas to understand, that if someone, threatens a lawsuit, it's probably worth getting some brief legal advice. And the type of advice that you want to get is, understanding, and this is the part that sometimes people don't really realize. You don't want initially a formal response drawn up to someone who makes a threat. It's just about general advice. When is a threat? So general advice would be, when is a threat really a threat? What's involved? And this is if you're defending. So, for example, a lot of people, make empty threats. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to get my mate onto you. I'm going to write a bad review about you. So it could be variations of that. Now, the gap between threatening and doing is quite significant, especially if you want to look at what's involved in someone taking legal action. So talking to lawyers, understanding the legal process, appointing a lawyer, the costs involved in initially drafting up, beyond the letter of engagement, initially drafting up a defense, the lawyer trying to interview, for example, the defendant as to, what their grievances are, the costs associated to that, serving a letter or notice, if you will, to the opposing side. All of those steps involved take time, they take money, and they take effort. So the gap between threatening and doing is quite significant. Okay, so with that in mind, it's worth considering that when you get a threat, because someone still needs to, go a lot further down the line to actually act upon that threat. And in most instances, when someone threatens a lawyer, you of course want to diffuse the situation. Okay, so when someone threatens a lawsuit, the go-to is diffuse the situation. So that's say, I'm sorry you feel that way. What can we do to alleviate this? All of these types of things, okay, are important. The other thing to consider is, just in general, don't panic. Okay, panic leads you, and potentially this is where there's an argument for getting a lawyer involved from the outset, or at least having someone who's been in disputes before give you some informal advice. A lawyer is always going to be better. What is it that you should say or not say? Because you don't want to say things, as you said, that you'll later come to regret. So not panicking is important. Don't panic. Wait before you shoot from the hip, so to speak, and just send out an email that you later regret, or say something on a call that you later regret, or say something that implies you were, let's say, guilty, or the one who was causing the problem, when you really weren't that person. So there's scenarios like that mean that you should just wait. So when you get a threat, ask for some general advice. What's involved in someone taking legal action? Generally speaking, what should you say or not say? what do you need to do to prepare? So there's some simple things that you should understand from a lawyer, I think, or someone who's been involved in disputes. These are some of the elements. Diffusing the situation is always the most important thing to do, and that could be, offering a refund, partial refund, continued work, doing what you can to appease the person where you think that there's grounds to appease the person. If you feel that you're hard done by, then you can determine when is best to seek legal advice yourself. But knowing these things in general is quite important, and learning a little bit depending upon the kind of issue that comes up, whether it's contract law or dispute. It's a dispute basically of some kind. So I would always advocate get some disputes advice in general, or having someone within the company who has some experience with disputes. I think it's always going to serve you well if you get advice based upon disputes. And the goal is ultimately mediation. So this is where like non-legal mediation is where a relationship completely breaks down. You want to get someone in the middle, not serving as an official legal entity, but just to help talk between you two, if you will. A little bit like when a couple argue, they might get a friend to help mediate. A similar principle can happen in a professional relationship, and I think that it's something that you should consider. Now, when do you need to know if you get a lawyer involved? There's also some general costs associated with contracts. So you're going to spend several £1,000s in any event, regardless of the size of the contract. When you start crossing, for example, the £50,000 mark, you could spend literally the same amount in legal fees as well. So there seems to be a bit of a jump. Small claims court is different to the general courts, and at small claims, the numbers can be managed and capped. When it goes to bigger contracts, it's a lot more involved. But in general, the whole process takes time. We're talking months and potentially sometimes years. We had a case through COVID that lasted years. We won. They dropped the claim before we even went to court, which is fantastic because it was definitely unfair. But it took its good old time. So fundamentally, you want to get some general advice. When someone threats, you want to understand the difference between a threat, when a threat is a threat and when a threat isn't. You want to understand what you can do to diffuse the situation. We speak about this in previous videos, like training number 85. Let me think about this. Just basically, we have discussed in, I'm trying to find it, training number 78, what to do if your client leaves a bad review, what to do if a client threatens legal action, in training number 76. So I think that these are some of the general approaches that you should consider when it comes to ultimately knowing when to get a lawyer involved. And I hope this helps. That's it. Thank you. Catch you in the next one.